I need to explain why Deathtrap Dungeon, a mostly forgotten game from the PS1 era, aside from its cover and its advertising campaign, is easily one of the best games I played this year, and why there is an outstanding chance that if you played it, you would hate this game, but I cannot do it sitting here. I need some paper and some things, and I have a lot to talk about, and it's gonna have to go somewhere here. And the mic's too far away, and it's not one of my favorite games that I played in 2023, because for 3 months, I was the world's #1 Deathtrap Dungeon streamer on Twitch and YouTube. And it's not because there's a character named Chain Dog, and I honestly forgot his name and called him Raw Dog until someone corrected me, or that both characters aren't squarer and thicker than a pan of fresh cornbread. It's because I spent 40 hours playing this game, twice a week, for months, and every time I played it, I laughed with delight at something. I gasped in shock and surprise, wagged my finger at the game after figuring out a trap before it sprung on me, and hang my head in defeat as a trap I should have seen coming lit me on fire or blew me to pieces, or one of a dozen other things that doesn't rely on a single gimmick or play style. I made it to the last level still not being certain I'd know what was going to happen, which is why it may be a game you absolutely hate. But this isn't me just telling you why a game from 1998 is good or bad. I'm here to explain why I'm so jazzed to talk about this game after playing it for the first time in 2022, and whether those features will translate into something that makes you go, yes, I need this, or is up to you. I'm just here to help you figure that out and gush about something I really enjoyed. So what is
the perilous depths of Deathtrap Dungeon?
I understand why the game is listed as adventure, because that's a completely useless title that can describe anything and everything. And this game is almost enough things to be everything. I don't know if that really made sense. Each one of the 38 levels are a labyrinth-like dungeon crawl. And it kind of feels like the exploration aspects of Dark Souls and the original Tomb Raider. Traps, enemies, loot, and surprises are littered, places obvious and subtle. The traps really do have such a well-earned feeling of gotcha moments and you should have known better, and really rewards you for paying attention. I knew there'd be a secret area in the secret area. Things like seams in the wall that don't line up that look like they could be just a glitch of the graphics of the time is actually a clue. Unfortunately also, sometimes in the unfair part, that's the only way to progress, and if you're not paying attention to those slight details, like a path being in a shadow that you couldn't see because of the camera angle the game gave you, yeah, sometimes it can be pretty unfair. If a game just throws death at you to artificially ramp a challenge, that's lame. But Deathtrap Dungeon is strategic, with nearly every negative thing you can find, like enemies and traps, having a tell. And it's not the same tell. Sometimes you see the little spouts that'll shoot darts or fire. Sometimes the floor will look just a little out of place. There's enough variety in its tells, and it introduces new ones throughout most of the game. There's almost never a trap until you start getting towards the end of the game. That felt completely unfair, whether it caught me or not. Nearly every trap. But we'll get to that. Maybe. So the basic gameplay is a gauntlet of traps, trials, and enemies through segmented portions of a labyrinth. But it's the details of each level that really make it special. You start off fighting like clowns in a circus-themed area of the dungeon, but just when you think you've learned what the game will throw at you, you're in a World War II reenactment area, or a hive full of insects, or one of like a dozen other seemingly just completely disconnected themes, like four-armed, four-breasted snake women battle magicians. And admittedly, all of them do kind of sound like a fever dream when you're trying to explain them, especially if you string them together, like the game does. but they are fun and delightful and unpredictable as a sequence of levels. There is combat, which we'll get more into later, but it's the traps that, as the name implies, are the draw and its best feature. Deathtrap Dungeon isn't a game you play. It's a game you outsmart. It's not malicious in its antagonism. It gives you the tools and information to outplay it. And when you fail, it gives you a well-spaced collection of checkpoints so you can try again. If there's one thing that sets Deathtrap Dungeon apart, it's the game's unpredictability. The speed and unhinged collection of nonsense it provides while adhering to the rules of the gameplay is just... like, I'm writing the script and doing the editing with less passes than I'm normally comfortable with because of the sort of polish the first idea you wrote without fundamentally changing it to get it done fast enough is exactly what kind of frantic energy Deathtrap Dungeon brings. And I hope I capture that, much like its collection of enemies and themes. That's one of these points. Yeah, surprise themes, challenges. Put enemies on there too. There's no room for it, just remember it. Like ideas, for example, someone said, let's have the text at the beginning of the level. Talk about a giant to watch out for. Watch out for its hands and feet and shoes. But have those things all be separate enemies. And then no one stopped them. That's what you fight. In one level, you fight the disembodied hands and feet of a giant. Thank you, phone. And then you fight the little like Beavis and Butthead goblin dudes with them jumping around in the giant's shoes. Also, at the beginning of each level, there is a wall of text in barely readable font. That could be better, but it gives you a taste of the level. It gives you critical information that you need in order to beat the level. It has little bits of the puzzle and how to solve things within it. And it's just so thoughtful and fun. And it really does give you helpful information and is written in a very fun sort of melodramatic tone. Let's talk about those enemies now. I think earlier I said we'll talk about those later. Now's that point. I'll find it in editing if I did. Maybe. Before playing this game, if you would have asked me to make a list of enemies I would assume I would be facing in this game and the scenarios they're in, you know, I'd guess like giants. It's the 90s, probably a T-Rex or two, and ghosts. On a good day where I was feeling really creative, you know, I may have guessed like disembodied pieces of a giant, or the four-breasted snake women, or World War II-inspired goblins. But I never would have guessed skeleton-driving steamroller, shooting enemies from the back of a flying turtle, and a goblin riding the indestructible shoe of a giant. And you face all of those things! Plus a hive full of different bugs, multiple kinds of robots, skeletons, wizards. A mix of predictable and unpredictable enemies always kept me guessing at what I'd face next. And that level of unpredictability, again on here somewhere already, just enhanced most encounters from normal combat or trap to something that was honestly so surprising it brought an extra element of fun. Remember when I said there is combat, which we'll get more into later. It's time to talk about what to do when you do find those enemies. Which, ooh boy. Okay, sometimes you can use traps to your advantage, which is really great. Like you can squish orcs in a hydraulic press if you time it right, or make a T-Rex fall into a spike pit. You can also run from enemies. Sometimes. Often you have to fight them, but combat is it is less than ideal. It's not a feature that's going to go on this board as one of the good things. You have a collection of melee weapons, ranged weapons, and spells. Melee combat is kinda lovably janky, as you have to hold a button to stand in battle pose, and then press one of the three directions for one of three attacks, like thrust, swing, and overhead chop. You can press back to block and dodge, and you get a few specialty weapons like the silver sword, which is better against the undead, and a magic hammer that can destroy rock people. But stand in position and hit fight button is mostly what it is. Ranged weapons, you get a laser gun. Yes, you get a laser gun. A blunderbuss. Yes, you also get an old-timey gun. And those are the best because they're very generous with auto-aim. But things like the bombs you throw are situational. I never figured out how to control how far you threw them, and their delay before exploding makes it hard to actually hit an enemy with it, since they'll probably be clipping through you by the time the bomb goes off. Spells are a complete mixed bag. Also, about spells, the game proper tells you literally nothing about what spell, weapon, or potion does. There's a whole thing of potions. Like, the flamethrower is pretty straightforward. Yes, you do get a flamethrower. But how was I supposed to know that the spell that summons a pig with dynamite strapped to its back will chase me and blow up in my face if it can't find an enemy? Combat is clunky enough to be funny, and if it weren't for the generous checkpoints, it would definitely take a dive off the cliff into extremely frustrating. Thankfully, they knew what they were doing in that regard and gave you some pretty generous checkpoints. Except for when you're having to fight on the back of a flying turtle and you have to jump from one turtle to another Oh, shoot, I have to talk about the movement. Okay, the movement also not going to go on this board. So the game is built on a grid, but it is very poorly disguised by allowing your character to move outside of the parameters of the grid, which looks neat and a little more fluid, but it means you're going to slide down the side of an object you were clearly on because the game has your character quite a few pixels behind where it's actually showing you. So, like combat, it's funny in its clumsiness, but the checkpoints keep it from being extremely frustrating. While I think it's as awkward as it is charming, make no mistake, doable, which it is not related to good. But it is a game about overcoming traps. And what are these passable controls if not but a meta trap that you have to learn how to overcome? You have to learn how to deal with the weapons, not just read about them. But you will be using a controller and getting it to work. Boy, I should have spaced this out because this has been a minute since I put anything on this board that was actually something I really love. But we got to get into the controller. I'm going to have a whole section on this so you know 2 things before you start playing. My pinky might have been up on that one. You need to use a controller, and you need to know how to make the controller work. The game works with a keyboard and only a keyboard when I installed it. But I cannot stress this enough. Pretend like it doesn't. It's made for a controller. There will be like a timestamp for people to come right here for when they just need to figure out how to get the controller working. Here's your step-by-step. So if you're gonna play Deathtrap Dungeon, here's how you get the controller working on Steam. First, open it in big picture mode. You have to be in big picture mode or it will not work. Once you're in big picture mode, go to your library, select Deathtrap Dungeon, click on Manage Game, and then Controller Configuration. At the bottom, you'll see Browse Configs. Go to Community and select the pimped DTB controller config if you don't want to set the whole thing up on your own. The thing with this controller setup is it's mimicking keyboard controls. And to get to each menu, you have to hit one of the F keys. There's 4 menus in the F keys and up to 8 selectable items within those. So you have to hit Start in order to apply the second controller configuration, which makes the face buttons and the D-pad buttons to select the items, and then you have to hit Start again to go back to the normal controller configuration in order to use said items and not just select a new one. Now, this method of selecting weapons might sound unintuitive. That's because it is. But it's also another meta trap. Traps are literally leaking out of this game. There's so many of them trying to get you. You have to stay calm when you have your bombs out, and you need to switch to your silver sword. Remembering the key code, start, left, X, start. Each spell and weapon is a little game of memory, a code to unlock your success. And really, what is having to jump through all these hoops but a trap the game put out for you to overcome? I knew from the start doing this on a keyboard was a bad idea, but switching to a controller involved struggling. But it was itself another challenge I needed to overcome to beat the dungeon of death traps. And that's what it was trying to teach me. Don't be afraid to do the work. Okay, back to things that aren't going to make this list and that may over frustrate people and that I can't pretend aren't meta traps. The bugs. And I'm not just talking about the hive levels. Things like exploding when loading into a level, or enemies getting stuck in walls, are products of a team that was probably stretched to their limits and then asked to do something more. Aside from the controller not working without some aid of big picture mode, I didn't actually find any game-breaking bugs. Deathtrap Dungeon is not for everyone, but there's an easy way to tell if it's for you or not. Your level of interest is going to run directly parallel with your level of enjoyment. I don't think this is the correct chart to make this point, but here we are anyway. So if you're watching this and you're like, this all sounds interesting, I'm rating it up here at a 10, and this is you right here, then your enjoyment is going to also be right there. And then that's you being interested, and it's going to, your enjoyment is high, your interest is high. If you go, this sounds terrible, I hate every single point you made on that chart that is now down there because things are falling. I don't have a real studio here. If your interest is down here, your enjoyment is over here. At no point of me saying Beavis and Butthead playing in a giant shoe is that going to spike your enjoyment. It's here. If you play this game for 2 hours and you go, my interest was here, but now my interest in finding out more is here, congratulations. Your enjoyment is also right there. It is never going to provide something so outlandish at the back half that didn't happen in the front half that you're going to be interested in it again. It's not going to happen. But if you're having a good time, if you're enjoying it, it's up here. Basically, if it seems interesting, you should try it. And if it doesn't seem interesting, you're not going to enjoy it. You could finish the video if you want. I got a few other things planned, but like, don't worry about the game. All right, now to get this back. Also, the game does not lead up to anything. The final boss is without hesitation the worst part of the game. And I did earlier mention the part where you have to jump from the back of a flying turtle onto the back of another flying turtle over a bottomless pit while enemies shoot at you with incredibly powerful weaponry. The end boss is not a test of things you've learned. It's some of the worst traps and combat in the game stuffed into a soggy box that smells weird. The cutscene after beating the game didn't even play for me, and I had to look up the scene online. And it was somehow more disappointing than just cutting to black and then credits. So Deathtrap Dungeon is flawed. It got mixed reviews when it originally released, and it sits at mixed reviews on Steam right now. But for everything I've mentioned here, I think it's worth playing. It takes risks, sometimes directly into a spike pit of its own making, but other times to something you've never experienced before. So, should you play it? I'm not going to end this with like a numerical score. It is not perfect. Is it good? Is good like what? Do good and fun, they're not equal to each other. I just took the time to make all these points and put them up here. It's thoughtful enough to make me passionate about it. And really, I think that's one of the most powerful things art can do. And thus, I think Deathtrap Dungeon is an underrated hidden gem that also has some doo-doo mixed into the gem. Just how it is. You gotta deal with, if you deal with one, you get the other. But I think it's worth it. You know, if I order an outstanding burger and get some subpar fries on the side, the whole thing is packaged together. But really, it was the burger that I cared about. And it was, you know, that does the decent fries don't make the burger any less outstanding than it was.